The mess hall fell silent as Commander Zara 7 limped through the doorway, her cybernetic leg whirring softly with each calculated step. The young recruits had heard whispers about the grizzled veteran stories of battles fought in the Outer Rim, of planets scorched by alien fire, of horrors that drove seasoned soldiers mad. But none had expected her to look so ordinary. Scarred, yes, with silver streaks threading through her dark hair and one eye replaced by a gleaming optical implant, but still recognizably human. "Gather around, rookies," she called out, her voice carrying the weight of decades spent shouting orders over plasma cannon fire. "Command says you need to hear about Kepler 442b before your deployment. Lucky you, I'm one of the few who made it back." The dozen fresh-faced soldiers exchanged nervous glances as they formed a semicircle around her table. Lieutenant Hayes, barely 22, and eager to prove himself, leaned forward first. "Ma'am, the briefings called it a routine reconnaissance mission. Intel suggested minimal hostile presence." Zara 7's artificial eye flickered a tell that the veterans recognized but the recruits missed. She pulled out a small device, projecting a holographic image of a verdant world swirled with purple clouds. "Kepler 442b. We called it Paradise when we first saw the long-range scans. Perfect atmosphere, abundant water, lush vegetation spanning 3 continents. Command thought it would make an ideal forward base for the expansion initiative." She paused, her fingers unconsciously tracing the burn scars that disappeared beneath her uniform collar. "I was part of the advance team, 200 of the Alliance's finest. Marines, engineers, scientists, all volunteers for what we thought would be humanity's greatest triumph. The planet seemed empty of sentient life. Our sensors detected no cities, no technology, no electromagnetic signatures. Just pristine wilderness, waiting to be claimed." Recruit Jensen, a farm boy from the agricultural colonies, raised his hand tentatively. "What went wrong, Commander?" The hologram shifted, zooming in on dense forests of towering crystalline trees that seemed to pulse with internal light. "The trees, son. Those beautiful, mesmerizing trees. We didn't realize they weren't just plants, they were the planet's immune system. And we were the infection they needed to eliminate." The mess hall's lighting seemed to dim as Zara 7 continued her tale. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, forcing the recruits to strain forward. "First day planetside, everything seemed perfect. We established base camp in a clearing surrounded by those crystal trees. The air was sweet, almost intoxicating. Some of the team commented on how the trees seemed to shimmer and shift when you weren't looking directly at them, but we dismissed it as atmospheric distortion." She manipulated the hologram, showing microscopic organisms floating in the alien atmosphere. By the 3rd day, people started changing. It began with Dr. Reeves, our xenobiologist. She claimed she could hear the trees whispering, sharing ancient secrets. "We thought it was space psychosis, happens sometimes on long deployments." But then, others began experiencing the same phenomenon. Lieutenant Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of changes, ma'am?" "The trees were teaching them, you see. Sharing knowledge that human minds weren't meant to process. Complex mathematical equations that hurt to think about. Languages composed of colors and emotions rather than words. Some of our people began to adapt. Their neural pathways restructured themselves to accommodate this alien information." The hologram now showed twisted human figures, their eyes glowing with the same pulsing light as the crystal trees. Private Martinez was the first to fully transform. One morning, we found him standing motionless among the trees, his skin taking on that same crystalline quality. When we tried to approach, he spoke in harmonics that made our equipment malfunction and our ears bleed. He told us we were welcome to join the planetary consciousness, but we couldn't. Zara 7's human eye grew distant, seeing ghosts that haunted her dreams. 14. Out of 200, only 14 of us retained enough human consciousness to recognize what was happening and resist the invitation. We tried to establish a quarantine protocol, but the transformed humans, if you could still call them that, began hunting us. They moved through the forest like phantoms, appearing and disappearing among the trees, always trying to convince us to evolve as they had. The projection shifted again, showing a crude fortification built from salvaged equipment. We held out for 6 weeks in a makeshift bunker, rationing supplies and fighting off daily attempts at forced conversion. The transformed ones never stopped trying to save us. They truly believed they were offering us a gift immortality as part of something greater than human consciousness. She stood slowly, her cybernetic leg locking into position with a soft click. Our evacuation window was closing. The orbital support ship could only maintain position for another week before solar radiation forced them to retreat. We had to make a choice: attempt escape through 20 kilometers of hostile forest, or accept transformation. The young soldiers sat in rapt attention as she described their desperate flight through alien woodlands where reality itself seemed negotiable. Trees would relocate themselves overnight. Paths would lead in impossible directions. The very air would whisper seductive promises of transcendence and unity. We lost 6 more during the escape. Some gave in to the whispers. Others simply faded, as if the planet decided they weren't worth the effort to convert. In the end, 8 of us reached the extraction point. Her artificial eye dimmed momentarily. Only 3 made it back to Earth with their sanity intact. The mess hall remained silent for long moments after she finished. Finally, Lieutenant Hayes found his voice. "What happened to the planet, ma'am? Is it still classified?" Zara 7 replied curtly, but her expression softened slightly. "What I can tell you is this: the universe is vast and strange beyond human comprehension. We are not the apex predators we believe ourselves to be. Sometimes, the greatest courage is knowing when to retreat." She gathered her projection device and prepared to leave. "Your deployment is to Proxima Centauri BA dead rock, with no atmosphere and definitely no trees. Count yourselves lucky, rookies. Some gifts are too dangerous to accept." As she limped toward the exit, her final words echoed in the stunned silence. "Remember, soldiers' survival isn't always about fighting. Sometimes, it's about remaining human when everything around you insists you should be something else." The mess hall door closed behind